This is part two to ages 10 to 15. Like I said, I was the black sheep of the family and was tortured a lot. I spent most of my childhood alone, completely alone. I'd take trips by myself, stay out till 10 o'clock at night, did all kinds of stuff, and still being abused by family members, tortured, not being able to participate. I'd leave notes in Gloria's drawer telling her I wanted to run away and stuff, and she'd find them, make fun of me and all this, and it's really bad. And Lance, still hanging out with Big Richard and all this, and doing cocaine, had a big cocaine problem, always going to the bars with Charlene, leaving us at home, where I'd be continuously abused and everything by Gloria and Jeff. Rhonda, not so much. I think I kind of picked on her a little bit, which was not necessary for me to do, but, down the chain until you break the chain. And one night, Charlene comes to me and says, if there's anybody that comes to the house and you hear gunfire, you should run under the bed and hide. And so, very traumatic. This time, Gloria was dating Bill Pincott. And that's my nephew's, Justin's dad, at which time she became pregnant. And I used to follow them around. They didn't like that. I used to hide in the car and pop up in the back seat when they weren't looking, and, they didn't like that. Well, she became pregnant with Dawn. She named her baby Dawn. And like I said, I guess Lance had a big cocaine debt. And so they had Gloria sign some papers over for her baby, and they gave it to my cousin Debbie, who is related to the people in Rialto, Aunt Tootsie and our cousin Bunny and all that. And so Debbie took Gloria's baby secretly, and I know they sold that baby for cash for Lance to pay off his cocaine debt. Gloria never knew her daughter. Couldn't find her until recently. It was exposed of, what happened, and she was united with her daughter, who has another daughter, which is very beautiful with red hair, and they lived out in Huntington Beach. And Justin was able to meet his sister and everything. And I was to pay off a cocaine debt. And so after that, we moved to the house on Asher. It was a very nice house. Had a built-in swimming pool, a guest house, and a barbecue room where Lance played his CB stuff. And even there, I was abused by Gloria's girlfriends who would come over and want to have sex with me, in which they did. And, being picked on at school for being very poor, calling me hobo, no, having to put cardboard in my shoes because I couldn't afford new shoes. But even though I did all that, I excelled really good in school, track and field, and, win trophies for the high jump, trophies for wood shop. I was in all the printing shop and all this and everything, and, awarded in front of the assembly and all of that, but still no family was present in my life at all. And so as I grew older and stuff, still an outcast. We did some BMX racing and stuff like that, and that was fun. And Charlene, she kept me aside. She'd take me to her so-called work and stuff like that. She'd take me out for taquitos, and I remember those moments because it was only me and her, and they were special to me, even though I did blame her for a lot of things that happened, but she didn't know, and I don't hold her accountable for any of that. So eventually, we moved to, after things fell apart at Asher, and because Lance never paid one of the mortgage payments on that, and after I was abused, Lance used to beat me all the time, continuously for years with belt hangers, his fist. Knocked me unconscious one time, until finally I kicked him in the face while he was beating me on the top bunk bed, and he never did that again. And he started beating on Charlene, and we didn't have 911 at the time for me to call. But Charlene was a barfly. She wasn't home. She was always hanging out at the bar and stuff like that, and having extramarital affairs and all this stuff. And so after that, we moved to Bodger Street, where I went to elementary school, and I had a lot of problems there with aggression. Threw a chair across the classroom, hit some guy in the head. And I got a whipping from the principal with a wooden paddle. I was supposed to get 4 whips. And broke on the second one. He got out a new one and continued. Had a little speech problem and stuff like that. And that's when I, age 13, smoking cigarettes, drinking, pints of vodka. That way I went down to Clark's Drugs and stole vodka for myself. And that's when I met Donis. She was 27, I was 14. First I met her husband, Charlie, who sold me some Colombian 4 fingers ounce for $10. And he took me to his house. I met his wife, and she had 2 daughters, Marie and Jennifer. Eventually, Charlie found me and Donis together. She was sitting at my feet as we were playing records, and he came in and asked, well, why is my wife at your feet? I said, hey, you don't want me here, I'll leave. So anyway, they had a big argument. They left. Me and Donis, she was the one who introduced me to my first actual sexual context. And like I said, she was 27, I was 14. She was married, 2 kids, and she had a friend named Cher who come over, and she hung out with my friend Ray, and eventually we all dropped acid and ended up in the same bed together. But I really liked her. She was a great woman, Italian woman, and she plays a big part of my story. Well, I decided not to go to high school, stay home, clean the house, do whatever I want. Had my dog Rufus with me, a street dog, and he kind of adopted me and stuff. My friend Lisa Hernandez across the street, and Suzanne, the other Hispanic girl, hang out with them all the time, and then the Bakers, and met my girlfriend, Kim Scott, and all that. And I was just wild, doing all kinds of drugs, everything I can get my hands on and stuff like that. Hung out with the gang members from El Monte Flores and stuff, and I thought that was pretty cool because they accepted me, and watched all the guys fight and stuff like that, and ended up one day with Craig Knudsen. Well, we went out and started doing some burglaries, and we broke into one house, and we divided up the money, and I was counting the money in the bedroom. Charlene, found out where I got the money. I said, well, I stole it. I go, I'll give you half. She didn't like that. She took me down to the police station and turned me in. And so ended up going to juvenile hall. They sentenced me to 6 months in a boys' home. That turned into 3 years. I didn't get out till I was 18. And Donna, she used to come visit me all the time at the boys' home, more than Charlene. She did once out of 3 years. And she was with Ron, the Marine, by then, who, is another story. He was kind of weird. I never trusted anybody with my daughters, or my daughters being around that family. That's why I didn't associate with them for over 2 decades and stuff. I didn't want them to be a part of what I experienced in that household. So, Gloria, she was gay. She had a gay girlfriend at the time. I didn't have no problem with it or anything like that. So, I ended up in the boys' home and went from one to another, Central, Los Padrinos. Then I met my friend Glenn in the Consbrook in the boys' home. God bless you, my friend. He grew up in El Monte, too, and we became good people. He was my best man at my wedding and stuff like that. And, I ran into Marie, and we hooked up with them. And even at that time, I wasn't a good person, still hooking up with other women and stuff like that, and prostitutes and everything. But I called up my mom after I graduated the boys' home, if I can I come home now? And she says no, she don't have room for me. So I had to live at the boys' home after I graduated, and apparently things got worse while I had to leave, and I moved in with Marie, and even that didn't work out, because I ended up with her brother's girlfriend, Jenny, in the mobile home park. And a lot of stuff Marie doesn't know about any of this, but it's part of my darkness that I have to deal with and stuff like that. I ended up going to Colorado with her and Jeff, and things didn't work out there either in Colorado. Met my friend Luke and his sister across the street, who I hooked up with, and I was supposed to stay there and go to work at the rock quarry with my buddy Luke, and that Marie calls. She visited Colorado with her dad and sister. That didn't work out. My brother Jeff, I caught him that piece of crap spying on Marie in the bathroom, and I have a lot of issues with him, and he should not be in my presence ever. And yeah, he ended up going to prison for statutory rape on a young girl in Colorado. So anyway, Marie called me back up, said that our insurance money came in from the car accident we were in. So I said, okay, cool, I'll come back. So I'm back at her house 2 weeks, only 2 weeks, and went back to the high school to visit, and the cop saw me rolling a joint on one of the patios, and he swooped up on me, and he was gonna, put me in the prone position. He was about ready to slap cuffs on me. I said, no, he ain't doing that. So I bolted on him and started running down the middle of the campus. Well, this dude was a big black officer. He tackled me, put me in a chokehold, and slapped those cuffs on me, took me down to the principal office, and principal and security wanted to try to get me off because they all knew me and I lived in the boys' home and everything like that. I had a lot of girlfriends in high school, and they just came and go and stuff, and Taft High, John Marshall High. And so I ended up going back to juvenile hall because I wasn't 18 yet and no place to live. Spent 2 weeks or a month in juvenile hall till I turned 18. And Charlene, she wouldn't even come pick me up. Marie called her and said, hey, Richard needs to ride. I go, no, she ain't going. I don't have no way to get there. So Marie went down there and picked her up so I can get out of juvenile hall. And I stayed at her apartment for a little bit, and Marie comes and tells me that, well, she's pregnant. Well, I'm back in town a month. Well, and I was only with her for 2 weeks after I was back in town. And she tells me she's pregnant. Well, I assumed it was mine. I don't have proof that Jennifer is my daughter unless there's a DNA test. I just find the timeline kind of off. And so I married her because I felt that, that was the responsible thing to do. All my life I've been an entrepreneur, always making money and everything like that. Paper routes, going door to door, selling stuff or whatever it was. So, moved back in with Marie and everything, and then we got married, and, it was low budget, but, when I was at the boys' home, I went to visit Marie because I was supposed to spend the weekend with her, and she wasn't there. She took off with her friend Cotty, and I had to walk back through Hollywood, get back to boys' home, and where I was coerced into a apartment for some food and stuff like that, where I was sexually assaulted by a man, and who fed me some alcohol it was spiked and stuff like that. Found out later he worked for the welfare department in Los Angeles County. When me and Marie went to go apply, I saw him again. Marie never knew that, but that destroyed my relationship with Marie because I always blamed her for not being home when we had an appointment to spend the weekend together. So that ruined my whole marriage. It ruined my whole relationship with Marie. I didn't love her anymore. And that's, I was a bad husband and bad father and everything like that. Shortly after that, we're living at one house, and a friend of mine who was selling cocaine at the time, Glenn, was living with them and stuff, and I knew his wife only by, being in the same house. They're cooking crack cocaine and all this stuff, and I was getting back into cocaine, and I was over at, Tom's and her sister's house, and she came in and said that Philip beat on her, Philip Berger. And so I just went in and talked to her, and I said, sorry that happened to you, and I hugged her, made her feel better, and I left that day. Unfortunately, that day I was carrying a long rifle with me because I went shooting earlier, who I got from Ron, the Marine, as a gift for my birthday. Well, later that night, Philip came to my house with a couple of his friends to confront me on Longview Street in North Hollywood. So he kicked in the back door, and I was in the living room. I just walked by the kitchen and looked at him and went straight for my gun. And I came back, and he just asked me, why are you talking to my wife? Why are you talking to my wife? Because he thought I was messing around with her, and I wasn't. And I asked him 3 times to leave. Please leave. And he wouldn't. He turned around like he was going to walk out the door, turned back around and stepped on my daughter Suzanne, who was like, 8 months old, and she started screaming. Well, I put 2 bullets in him, one in the chest and one in the face, and he dropped. And I told Marie, get on 911 and call law enforcement. And by this time, his friend, and Glenn was there. Glenn was in the kitchen watching the whole thing. And he pulled me out of some tough situations, and he's still my best man today. God bless you, my friend, and your wife, Barbara, and Shannon. And so his friend came in the back door, and he was bigger than Glenn. Glenn grabbed him and just threw him up on the kitchen counter, and they were fighting and stuff. And so I run out the front door, waiting for law enforcement to show up, put my gun in the bushes. They show up, and all this, and it's a crime scene. It's a homicide scene, and I wish I just would have fought him, even if I would have got my ass whipped instead of using a gun. And that's why I don't own guns today. I'm an advocate for the Second Amendment, but I think they're just too easy to use when you're in a very bad place mentally. So I was taken to Van Nuys County Jail, where I spent 6 days. I signed my confession. They found out that it was justifiable homicide. In fact, I had information on another homicide that the detectives were working on, about another coke dealer who got jumped and stole all his stuff, because I overheard a conversation. So I let him. The detectives took me, and I showed them where the house was and everything like that. And this is why I'm still in jail for murder. And so they ended up solving that case because they found the body in the back seat, or in the back of a white van where blood was dripping out. They robbed him for his cocaine. And so shortly after that, I was released for justifiable homicide. I wasn't safe in San Fernando Valley anymore, so I moved up to Sacramento. And I'll stop right there. God bless you.